When was the last time you spoke and the entire room actually stopped to listen? Not just nodded politely while waiting for their turn to talk, but truly stopped, absorbed your words, felt the heavy physical weight of your presence. We are fed a massive lie from the time we are children. We are told that power is loud. We are told that the person dominating the conversation, the one shouting over the noise, the one moving frantically, is the one in control. That is a lie. The loudest person in the room is almost always the most terrified. They are screaming because they are absolutely paralyzed by the thought of being invisible. And what about you? You sit there, swallowing your thoughts. You get talked over in meetings. You let relationships slowly deteriorate because you do not know how to articulate the brutal truth of what you are actually feeling. You are suffocating your own voice, and it is costing you everything. It is costing you your career. It is costing you your most intimate relationships. It is costing you your internal peace. You think you need to learn how to be louder. You think you need a sharper vocabulary. You do not. You need to learn how to be heavier. Communication is not about the words you memorize. It is about the physical and psychological space you command. Today, we are going to tear down everything you thought you knew about speaking to human beings. I am going to give you 7 absolute laws to completely transform how you connect, how you persuade, and how you demand respect. Not by faking a new personality, but by mastering the unshakable, quiet power of your own mind. The very first law of commanding respect is mastering the silence, the art of the unbothered pause. Most people are absolutely terrified of quiet spaces in a conversation. Why? Because silence feels like a void, and human beings are deeply conditioned to panic in the void. When someone asks you a high-pressure question or challenges your opinion, what happens internally? Your heart rate spikes. Your chest tightens. You feel an agonizing, suffocating pressure to respond immediately. You stumble over your own tongue. You use filler words. You rush your sentences, desperately stringing words together because you are terrified the other person will walk away or think you are incompetent. This is the trap of the anxious mind, and it is the silent killer of your authority. When you rush to fill the silence, you are subconsciously signaling submission to the primitive brain of the listener. You are practically screaming to the room, I am so afraid of losing your approval that I will rush my own thoughts just to keep you looking at me. It is a frantic, anxious energy. And people can sense that anxiety instantly. They lose respect for you, not because of what you said, but because of how desperately you said it. You surrender your power the moment you let someone else dictate the speed of your breath. When you stop rushing, you force the world to wait for you. You force the room to adapt to your tempo. Not for them, not for the crowd, but for you. Think of a world-class musical composition. A symphony does not draw its emotional power solely from the crashing of the cymbals or the furious playing of the violins. The music is not just the notes. The music is the heavy, deliberate space between the notes. The silence is the only thing that gives the sound its actual rhythm and meaning. If there is no pause, there is no music. There is just a chaotic wall of noise. Your voice is exactly the same. If you never pause, you are just noise. You become background static that people instinctively learn to tune out. You must build a callus against the uncomfortable quiet. You must learn to sit in it and not flinch. Silence is a fence around wisdom. It protects your mind from reacting blindly out of pure emotion. It gives your brain the critical milliseconds of oxygen it needs to formulate a response that carries undeniable weight. Here is your exact execution plan, and you will start this today. The very next time someone finishes speaking to you, or the next time you are asked a difficult question, you are going to strictly forbid yourself from answering immediately. You will close your mouth, You will look them directly in the eyes, and you will count to 3 in your head. 1, 2, 3. You will take a slow breath in through your nose, and only then will you open your mouth to answer. At first, this will feel agonizing. Your skin will crawl. Every insecure nerve in your body will demand that you hurry up and speak. Let the nerves scream. Do not break the silence. Hold the line. What you will witness in those 3 agonizing seconds is a complete shift in power. The other person will physically lean in. The tension in the room will transfer entirely into your hands. By the time you finally speak, your words will land with devastating precision. You are no longer reacting, you are commanding. You walk into a room, and before a single syllable even leaves your lips, the entire room has already decided exactly who you are. Would you believe me if I told you that your actual words only account for a tiny fraction of your communication? It is the absolute truth. Because your physical body is screaming your deepest insecurities to the world long before you ever clear your throat. The second law of true influence is that you must weaponize your physiology. Most people completely ignore their physical vessel when they are trying to speak. They fold inward. Their shoulders cave forward, their spine curves, their chin drops toward the floor, and their arms cross tightly over their own chest. This is not just bad posture. This is the physical manifestation of defeat. You are subconsciously trying to make yourself as small as possible so the world does not notice you, judge you, or attack you. You are hiding in plain sight. But the primitive brain of every single human being in that room is ancient. It reads that physical posture instantly, without a single conscious thought. It reads the submission. It reads fear. It reads pray. How can you possibly expect someone to respect your brilliant ideas when your own skeleton is apologizing for simply existing in space? You cannot. It is a biological impossibility. Your body is betraying your mind. Think of a massive steel skyscraper built right in the middle of a hurricane zone. When the violent storm hits, the building does not shrink. It does not fold inward to protect itself from the chaos. It stands absolutely rooted to the earth, structurally sound from the deep concrete foundation all the way up to the glass roof. It lets the wind hit it. It takes the heavy impact, but it remains completely unbothered, boldly occupying its exact coordinates in space. Your physical body must become that structure. When you stand tall, when you physically open your chest and expose yourself to the room, you are not just bluffing confidence to other people. You are chemically signaling to your own nervous system that you are safe, that you belong exactly where you are, and that you are an immovable object. Your physical presence must become a heavy anchor in a room full of drifting ships. You must understand that your posture is not just a simple matter of bones, joints, and muscles. It is a direct reflection of your internal reality. You must stand up straight, not just with your shoulders, but with your soul. When you physically align your spine, you mentally align your mind. You silently inform the noise around you that you are not going to be pushed aside. You are claiming your absolute right to breathe the air in that room, not for them, not for the approval of the crowd, but for you. Here is your highly specific execution plan, and it starts the second you leave this screen. You are going to aggressively implement the doorway anchor technique. From this day forward, every single time you walk through a physical doorway, whether it is the door to your corporate office, the entrance to a crowded room, or the door to your own home, that door frame is your strict physical trigger. As you step through, you will immediately drop your shoulders down and back. You will pull your chest open, physically exposing your vulnerability to the room. You will lift your chin until it is perfectly parallel to the floor. You will take one deep, deliberate breath into your stomach, expanding your physical frame. You will execute this physical reset before you say a single word to anyone inside. You claim your physical space first. You force the room to silently acknowledge your weight. Execute this consistently, and you will physically reprogram your nervous system to stop apologizing for taking up oxygen. Let me ask you a brutal question. When someone is speaking to you, are you actually listening to them? Or are you just quietly reloading your ammunition, waiting for them to pause so you can fire off your own opinion? If you are honest with yourself, you know exactly what you are doing. The third law of undeniable influence is the sniper's approach to listening. You must stop reloading your weapon while the other person is talking. Most people are absolute failures at listening. They engage in conversations, but what they are really doing is just two people taking turns monologuing at each other. Why do we do this? Because the human ego is a fragile, desperately hungry thing. When someone else is speaking, your ego feels deeply threatened by the fact that the spotlight is no longer on you. So, your brain instantly starts formulating your counter-argument. You start rehearsing the brilliant, witty thing you are going to say next. You want to prove that you are smart. You want to prove that you are right. You want to prove that you matter. But in doing so, you completely abandon the person standing right in front of you. You are physically in the room, but psychologically, you have checked out. This is the slow collapse of every meaningful connection in your life. People can feel it when you are just waiting for your turn to talk. They feel your impatience. They feel the total lack of genuine interest. And the moment they feel that, they build a massive brick wall between you and them. You think you are communicating, but you are just talking to a wall. You must stop acting like a mirror, constantly trying to reflect your own image back into the conversation. A mirror absorbs absolutely nothing. It only deflects. If water hits a mirror, it just slides right off the rigid glass. You need to become a sponge. A sponge is entirely porous. It is empty, waiting, and ready to absorb every single drop of water that hits it. When someone speaks, you must empty yourself of your own immediate needs and just absorb the heavy weight of their reality. Stop deflecting. Stop making their story about your experiences. Absorb the water. The ancient Stoic philosophers understood this absolute truth centuries ago. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. It is a biological mandate. Listening is not a passive activity. True listening is a deeply aggressive act of discipline. It requires you to violently suppress your own ego for the sake of truly understanding another human being. Here is your execution plan, and you will use it in your very next conversation. It is called the last 3 words technique. From now on, when someone is talking to you, I want you to force your brain to focus so intensely on their sentences that you can perfectly repeat the last 3 words they said before you even open your mouth to reply. This will physically stop your brain from drifting off into your own thoughts. It forces absolute, unbreakable presence. You cannot rehearse your own response if your brain is utterly locked onto their final words. By doing this, you are silencing your ego. You are forcing yourself to remain inside their reality. And when you finally do speak, your response will be so deeply connected to what they actually said, they will feel a level of profound respect for you that they have never felt before. Start doing this today. Not for the world, but for you. What happens the exact second a conversation turns hostile? When someone criticizes your work, attacks your character, or completely dismisses your opinion, do you hold your ground? Or do you let their internal chaos dictate your external response? The 4th law of absolute mastery is emotional detachment under fire. You must never let someone else's lack of control hijack your nervous system. Most people completely crumble the moment they are challenged. Why? Because they take every single disagreement violently personally. When someone attacks your idea, your fragile ego convinces you that they are attacking your actual survival. Your blood pressure spikes. your vision narrows, your vocal cords tighten, and you raise your voice to fight back. You turn a simple exchange of words into a brutal, emotional battlefield. But listen to me very closely. The moment you lose your temper, the moment you raise your voice to match their manic energy, you have already lost the argument. You have handed the remote control of your emotional state directly over to the other person. You are letting someone else's emotional sickness infect your mind. You become a puppet and they are pulling the strings. This is the slow collapse of your self-respect. Think of a raging, destructive fire. How does a fire grow? It needs a constant, massive supply of oxygen to survive. When someone comes at you with anger, aggression, or manipulative chaos, they are sparking a fire. Your panic, your desperate need to defend yourself, your frantic explanations, that is pure oxygen. You are feeding their flame. You are giving them exactly what they want. But what happens when you pour still, heavy water over a raging fire? The water does not negotiate with the heat. It does not try to outshout the flames. It simply drops its heavy weight, suffocates the oxygen, and the fire instantly dies. You must become that deep, unbothered water. Your complete lack of emotional reaction will drown their chaos entirely. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote the ultimate truth for surviving this chaotic world. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You cannot control the disrespect, the ignorance, or the anger of the fragile people around you. You will never control them. But you possess absolute, tyrannical control over the tiny space between their insult and your verbal reaction. Here is your highly specific execution plan for the very next time you find yourself under verbal attack. You are going to aggressively practice the physical out-of-body detachment. The exact second you feel your heart rate spike and your ego screaming at you to fight back, I want you to mentally force a pause. You will literally imagine taking one physical step backward out of your own skin. Visualize yourself floating up to the ceiling of that exact room. Look down at the two human bodies standing there. See their red face, their frantic energy, their desperate need to be right. Then, look at your own physical body standing perfectly still. By violently forcing your brain to observe the situation from the third person, you instantly sever the emotional cord. You detach the ego from the event. You stop reacting like an animal under attack, and you start responding like a tactician. You look at them, you let their fire burn out in the heavy silence, and you maintain your absolute peace. Not for their comfort, not for the world, but for you. Where do your eyes go the exact moment a conversation becomes slightly uncomfortable? Be intensely honest with yourself. When someone asks you a question that catches you completely off guard, or when you are trying to convince a skeptical room of your actual value, where are you looking? The fifth law of unshakable influence is the heavy currency of unflinching eye contact. You must look them directly in the eye, and you must absolutely refuse to be the first one to look away. We are living in a modern epidemic of the broken gaze. Look around you. People are utterly terrified of looking each other in the face. They stare down at their glowing screens. They look at the floorboards. They stare at the blank wall right over your shoulder. They let their eyes dart frantically around the